Hey folks, Bud West here with the Bond Brain with a product suggestion. Now, we all know that the character of James Bond is a Scotch drinker, and in many cases, peaty or very smoky scotches. Things like Johnny Walker Black. We see Talisker in James Bond films. And last night, I had the opportunity to go to a seated Scotch tasting for an Isla Scotch called Kilchoman. Now, Kilchoman is a farm and distillery in Scotland, and they grow their own grains, they harvest their own peat, and then they turn that into scotch that they sell worldwide. Now, about 60% of their market is in Europe. So if you're living in Europe right now, you may be a little more familiar with it than we are here in the United States. Huge country here in the United States, and only about 30% of their sales. But I was able to attend this tasting and I tasted some incredible whiskeys. As a matter of fact, I tasted about 8 incredible whiskeys. One of them was cask strength. It was 122 proof. That's a little heavy for me personally. Plus, I had to drive home. But they're two heavy hitters for me. One of them really stood out, and it's this right here, what they call Kilchoman Sun Egg. Now, their two biggest sellers of these whiskeys are aged in different types of barrels. So, one of them was aged about 90% of the time in bourbon barrels supplied by Buffalo Trace right here in the United States, and then about 10% of the time in sherry casks, which they source from a winery in France. This particular whiskey is the polar opposite. It spent 90% of its time in sherry casks, which is something that I seem to tend to be drawn to, even with things like bourbon. Sherry casks really bring out a heavier flavor for me that I enjoy. It spends about 10% of its time in bourbon casks. I don't know why I'm like that. I really enjoy bourbons as well, but highly recommended for this. This is about $70 US, this bottle. Some other whiskeys could be a little more expensive, but I really think that it's definitely, if you're into Scotch and you're into a peaty Scotch and you're a Bond fan and you're watching this, if you get a chance to try Kilchoman, give them a chance. Excellent whiskey. I think it's definitely worthy of a mention or a Bond film. And I really think it's something that if James Bond were a real person, he would probably drink this stuff. This is Bud West with the Bond Brain here on Instagram. And this is going to be part of a new series, folks. And I want to look at some products that I think are definitely worthy of James Bond and something that I could realistically see in a Bond film, similar to the other high-end products that we see out there. Maybe not at that price point. Maybe they are at that price point. It depends. But Kilchoman Scotch for this one, and I got a couple more coming up. This is Bud West with the Bond Brain on Instagram, and this will return.